everyone. My name is Linnell Siebold, and on behalf of the staff and board of directors, many of whom are with us today, I want to welcome you to the Ava Gardner Museum. This is a very special year for us as we are celebrating Ava's 100th birthday in December, and we have lots of special events planned for this year, one of which is tonight. And I am very pleased to welcome the Ava Gardner Trust and Seven Jars Distillery as they launch a new whiskey dedicated to Ava. I hope you will mark your calendars for our Ava Festival, which will be October 7th through the 9th. And we will have many other special events, including a tribute concert for Ava, our always popular heritage tours, including unveiling of new exhibits and having a lot of fun, and everybody will have a great time. I want to introduce you tonight to two very special ladies. These are the trustees of the Ava Gardner Trust, and they work hard to promote and protect the image of their Aunt Ava. And this is the co-trustees, Ava Silver and Ava Thompson, and we all work very closely together because the museum and the trust has the same goal to protect, and we have the same vision for Ava Gardner in the future of the museum and the trust. So I would like to introduce the Avas.
Hello everyone, all around the world and in this room. We are so grateful to the Ava Gardner Museum for hosting us this evening and for being such a wonderful partner. As Linnell pointed out, although it is the job of the trust to generate funds for the beneficiaries of the trust, the Ava Gardner Museum being one of those, it is also a goal of the trust, just as it is of the museum, to preserve and protect the legacy of Ava Gardner. And I cannot think of a better partner to do that with other than the Ava Gardner Museum. So thank you, staff and board of directors, for hosting us this evening. There is another group of people who we owe thanks to for helping us to protect and preserve the legacy. And that is the administrators and all of the members of the many Ava Gardner social media pages worldwide. I see the posts every day, and they are just so impressive. Members do some amazing research, and of all the tens of thousands of photos of Ava in this museum, the members can always find new photographs to post. And the posts are accurate and informative, and thank you members, thank you administrators for helping to preserve and protect the legacy of Ava Gardner. We want to recognize and thank the family owners, partners of Seven Jars Distillery. Dale Ratcliffe and his sister Velda, please stand up. And Scott, Velda's husband, he is back there with one of the cameras. And I have to say that I really kind of feel sorry for Scott because he has such a hard job. He is the master distiller. He is in charge of quality control. So it is his job all day long, day in and day out, to taste the whiskey. So sorry, Scott. And Scott and Velda and Dale brought two very special guests with them today. Charlie Wilkinson and his partner Troy of Whiskey Tango Charlie. And I am told, or I understand, that an art is something that can be taught and it can be learned. And these two gentlemen are going to conduct a tasting today, and they are going to teach us the art of tasting or drinking bourbon. But before we turn the program over to them, my co-trustee, my daughter, Ava Melissa, is going to unveil the new label on the second edition of the Ava Gardner Select Bourbon, and she's going to tell us a little bit about why this label is special.
Okay, so big reveal. Here we are.
Yeah.
And the beautiful bottle. So we chose this photo because Ava Gardner obviously is an icon, and she was a fashion icon as well. So in the film noir, she brought a male perspective into her attire by wearing the trench coat and kind of showing that double cross without having to say that she's double crossing everybody. So she was actually the second only in film history to wear a trench coat in a film. The first, of course, being Greta Garbo, but she was the second, and I think she made it really popular and fun.
Okay, well, Dale, I'm going to turn it over to you and to Whiskey
Charlie.
Tango Charlie.
So I just want to say a few things. First of all, thank you all so much for being a part and allowing us to be a part of this great adventure. You know, we were approached a number of years ago by what was actually a talent agency out of California. We had no idea who they were representing. We thought at the time it was kind of a wild idea. Little did we know it was going to lead to not just a great business partnership, but kind of an extension of our family. And you know, part of our reasoning, and actually probably the biggest part of our reasoning for developing the Seven Jars Distillery and producing the products that we produce, was we wanted to share the history of our family. And we kind of always feel like every time we do a tasting, every time we have somebody tour our facility, every time we share our story, we're opening up our family and we're inviting everybody to be a part of that. And we didn't realize this at the time, but it's certainly come to be true. That's what has happened with Ava's family. You know, we truly have been welcomed into their family, and they certainly have been welcomed into our family, and it's just been a great adventure for us. You know, we're just really excited to do this. We thank Linnell for having us up there every time. This is kind of like coming home here. We've been up to Smithfield a number of times and visited with the museum. We've had so much fun here. There have been times during COVID when there was nobody else but us here, you know, but we had the booze and we had a good time. So that was really all that we needed to do. Today, this is going to be a really special thing, and I could sit here and talk for hours about all of this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to turn it over to Charlie and Troy here in just a minute. We've done a lot of these before ourselves, but this time we wanted to do things a little bit different. We wanted to bring in some really great experts on whiskey and on bourbon, and let them walk you through this so that you would have an opportunity both here in the audience, but also at home. We'd invite you to join us at home as we go through this. Let them take you through the nuances of tasting bourbon and explain to you some of the characteristics of this. It's truly a very unique product that we have, and all bourbons are unique, but we certainly feel like ours is kind of extra unique, you know, and they're gonna talk you through all of this stuff. One of the things that I do want to mention, though, kind of before we get into that, is I do want to talk a little bit about the special, I guess, kind of relationship of this second edition to the first edition, okay? A lot of you are very familiar that we did have our first edition. That was a limited number of bottles. We only did 3,600 bottles in that run. And for us at the distiller, we're completely out. There are still some of those bottles available at shelves in some of the ABC stores here in North Carolina. You might find one here and there, but I would advise you, if you could get one, that one is really a collector's item already, okay? There is an image on that bottle that is different from this image. We were very fortunate to have Universal agree to let us use that image, and it was one of the most iconic images, I think, in the film noir period from The Killers, Ava's breakout role. And you know, we were very pleased and honored to be able to have that image. And once we produced that run, we actually sent some of the bourbon out to the Universal folks and let them try it and everything. And fortunately, they came back to us and said, "Do you want to do some more?" And so we did. And so they've actually given us permission to do not one, but 2 additional releases, and gave us permission to use different images for those. So this is the second image in what is going to be a 3-image series, a 3-bottle release release series. And we have held back a few of the original edition that we're going to be doing some special 3-packs where we'll have all 3 of those at the very end available. But one of the things that you need to remember is once they're gone, they're gone. You know, that's one of the good things about bourbon, but it's also one of the bad things about it. You know, it's usually kind of like a lot of fine wines. People don't realize that, you know, but it's not always an endless supply. And there's a difference from almost every batch, from one batch to the next. We do produce bourbon in batches. We blend it very uniquely each time. And one of the final things that I want to say before I turn it over to these guys and let them walk you through this is we had a business strategy all along that we've had at 7 Jars, and that was everything that we made, we always produced it, we tasted it, like Ava mentioned Scott's job, you know. We all kind of help him out with that. He doesn't have to bear the burden of the tasting and quality control by himself. But our goal has always been, you know, we produce stuff that we like. And if we don't like it, our exit strategy in this business has always been, we'll just drink it all ourselves, okay? One thing that we found out, and we're very happy, is we now have the Ava family, and all of Ava Gardner's family has proven to be very willing to help us with that. So I think that if we ever do decide we're going to have an exit out of this, we got plenty of people to help us drink all of that. So we again invite all of you guys to enjoy yourselves here. I want to turn it over now to Charlie and Troy and let them walk you through this process. It's going to be a lot of fun. We want everybody to have fun. Give and take too, you know, ask questions. We want this to be fun, but we also want it to be interactive as well, okay? And we can tell you anything you want to know from the tasting, but all the way back to, you know, the making of bourbon and some of the history. Our family has a history going back all the way to before 1920 that we've been making this stuff. So we've got over 100 years of history in this, and we're happy to talk to you about any part of that. So Charlie, Troy, you guys come in here and take it over.
Thank you so much, Dale. Yeah. Oh, man. Folks, I can't even tell you, so what an honor to be invited to come down and do this. And thank you to Miss Ava and Dale and Scott for reaching out to me and saying, hey, we'd really like to have you and Troy to come down and do this thing and do your tasting thing with us. You know, a little background with me, the 7 Jars Distillery, where it sits today, is right in my neighborhood. It's where I grew up in Charlotte. And this is a really cool deal. So when I kind of stumbled in over there a couple of years ago, and I walked in and I said, this guy here, Scott, and so he and I grew up basically in the same neighborhood in Oakdale. So anyway, you know, the first release, if I go back to that, you know, real quickly, what amazing thing. Scott, I was fortunate to get a sample of that before it was released. And he said, what's your thoughts on it? And, you know, nose and did it. And it was just delicious. A couple of weeks ago, he invited me. He said, I need you to come over. I want you to pre-taste this before we go down and go live with it. And I said, well, it was a twist of arm. So anyway, I went over there. And so he grabbed a bottle off the back there, and we poured it. And I did the nose and taste. And I was like so delighted. Great job to Scott and everybody there. I will tell you this, if you've had the first release and you're going to get the second release, it is small batch, and there is distinct differences within these 2 releases. And they're very, very delightful in both of them. So first release was 101 proof. The second was 102. So we're inching up just a hair bit. So it's really interesting what's happened here. So you haven't.
It's hard to get a word in with you. I just want to welcome everybody to the museum here. Who's all been to a wine tasting before? We are not at a wine tasting. Okay? How about who enjoys drinking bourbon? Yeah. Well, we're not drinking bourbon today. We're tasting bourbon, right? And Charles and myself are very knowledgeable, but we're not experts. We've been to certifications. That and $4 will not get you a Starbucks. Just saying, right? This is a very interactive thing. How many people enjoy ice cream? Everybody, right? But if everybody enjoyed vanilla ice cream, it would be a very vanilla world. So we all have different palates. We all enjoy different things. And our enjoyment comes from our exposures of the world. The best I can tell you is Charles and myself were doing a podcast at one time, and he goes, do you smell the honeysuckles? And I was like, a honey what? And I'm from Southern California. We don't have honeysuckles in Southern California, and I have no idea what a honeysuckle smells like. But you may have people that will say, oh, I can pick up a taste of plantains. And not everybody has ate a plantain. So it's all based on your experience, and it's based on your palate. So enjoy it where you sit, how you enjoy your drinks. May it be neat, like we're drinking it today, or in a mixed beverage of your favorite type.
Yep. Well said, sir. Well said there. So we did give a tool to you guys that may help you as we go through this. A little flavor wheel that I left in the room for everybody. And this is just a great tool. This will help you when we start going through this and you're saying, I'm smelling something, I know this, but I can't really put my finger on it. And so this may help you just as a tool to use today. So
let's do some nosing.
So Troy mentioned this is not a wine tasting. So here's what I don't want anyone to do. If you already did some sampling, that's okay. In a bourbon and the whiskeys, if you're doing neats, what you never really want to do is just to take it, put your nose down in there and then just take a big smell, okay? But what happens with that is the ethanol and stuff, it's gonna obliterate your sinus, and you're not gonna be able to really pick up these finer notes. So what I encourage people to do is, first of all, and I learned this from Steve Nally, a master distiller in Bardstown Bourbon, and he's a Maker's Mark guy. But I was swirling this, and he said, don't swirl it like you do wine. That's another thing. He said, let it be still, because the swirling, it just agitates all this ethanol. So kind of make the glass still, and bring the glass up slowly, and get about 6 inches to 4 inches, and just get to a point. What I want you to do is really let the vapors come to your nose, instead of taking your nose to the vapors. Make sense? Right? So when you do that, when you get to an area where you start picking up the vapors, stop there, because this is where you pick up those very lighter notes in the bourbon. The closer you keep getting, is you're going to start getting the bigger, the stronger notes, and the more ethanol. And this is really the best way that I can really do it. Is just so this is very light. Wow.
Charles, we're going to have to taste this.
Okay. Yeah. So let's do this. We're going to take I want you to have just a very small sip, and I mean small. Treat it like you put an M&M in your mouth, and it's just sitting on your tongue, and let it melt there for a moment. Okay. Hold it there for a moment, and as soon as you swallow, just do this. Just blow out. Exhale. What that does is it helps you dissipate that initial burn. So when you're doing this, we call this in our tasting events, we call this shock the palate, because we really did just shock your palate, that very first sip. And so we'll...
Yeah, so in shocking the palate, I noticed that there are a lot of women in the audience, and I'm trying every day to get my wife to enjoy bourbon. But gentlemen, the women have a more keen sense of palate. They have a keen sense of taste, and we all know that they have a very keen sense of smell, because when we come home from somewhere, they'll do that. Where have you been? Right? So the women typically have a better palate. They're going to be able to pick up some things us guys typically cannot pick up. So I just want to be transparent with that. But in drinking it, that shocking the palate is key, because it gets your sensory ready. And you're not going to pick up those flavors until about the third taste,
Right.
Charles.
Right. So I'm going to let that settle in before we take another sip. I want to take you back to another little nosing technique, because you'll notice as you're sitting there and this first sip is just sitting there on your palate, you'll begin to feel, or you'll get some of those flavors coming to you. So another nosing tip. Everybody kind of knows, you do know. You have a dominant eye, it's left or right. You have a dominant hand, you're right-handed or left-handed. A lot of people don't realize you have a dominant nostril. And this is a great one. I want you to know this. It's very different. So here's the way you do, is you take that glass and you sort of come over to the right side and kind of smell over to the right and say, okay, I got that. And then come over to the left.
It's a much different smell left to right. But let's go ahead and take another little sip, again, about the size of an M&M.
Yes.
And let's go ahead and do that same exercise again. Left. Excuse me, left. Like it. Left, right. What are you picking up? Anybody picking up things? And please use your cards to do that.
Smells.
Anything distinctive in the smell? that
Anybody
you're picking
getting a
up?
prominent smell on this bourbon?
How about some oaks? You getting any oaks?
Oakiness?
Maybe some caramels?
I mean, I get the traditional.
Caramel on my left.
Caramel on your left.
Caramel on my left.
It's kind of what?
And a
Honey?
Yes, I'm getting a honey on the palate big time,
Anybody else picking up anything?
right? So let me ask you this, from the first sip, second sip, or maybe you're on the third sip, that's okay too. Did you notice a big difference between the first, second, third sip? How it just kind of keeps getting smoother? Okay, we've got the shock in the palate thing out of the way, and we're like getting through that.
So with me, the third sip, totally different than the first and two. I don't know how you guys feel. Any flavors that you're picking up on that third sip? Yeah, quiet crowd.
You know, so I'm gonna,
Hang on, Charles.
what is it?
People on the internet are yelling. That's crazy. They can almost.
Oh, wait a minute, what do we got here? Oh, I got it, perfect, I needed to see that. I see your numbers. Hey, so here's what I got, the third sip, the flavor profiles really come in. What I enjoy about this is where it sets in the palate. If you kind of notice the flavor profiles, it's sort of setting on about the mid palate back, and it's just the flavor profiles just sort of set there, and just kind of like, and you breathe in and out, you get it. And Scott, I was curious to see if this was going to happen. So when I tasted this a couple weeks ago, I'm sitting at home and I'm describing to my wife what I was getting. I get this after it sits there for a little while, and it just really, if you'll notice, I kept saying it was like, I get this very slight hint of anise or licorice. And it wasn't licorice because licorice is too much, but I get this anise. And I'm describing it to her, and she looked over at me and she said, "You mean like a Pizzelli cookie?" And I was like, bingo, that's exactly it. That is exactly that hint. If you've ever had those cookies, the Pizzellis, you get that slight bit of anise in that, in certain ones, I think it is. And I say, exactly. And almost, when she said that, also got some of almost like that cookie baking sort of a deal. So
let's take a look at the color, right? The deep amber color of that. And when a bourbon comes out of the still, it is completely clear. Very similar to this water here. And what gives it the color is the barrel itself. As that barrel heats up and cools down, heats up in the summer of the day and in the cooler evenings cools down, that bourbon, or excuse me, that spirit moves in and out of the wood and actually gives it not just a color, but a flavor. So typically you can tell the age of a bourbon by looking at how dark it is. Another thing I'd like to share with you, as we have time, is the fingers and the legs that come down when you shake it around. And you look and you see all these things running down. That's how you can tell the sugar content and how it sticks to the glass, that oily sticking to the glass. And Charles, would you like to talk about how it sits on the palate? We've got about 3 minutes.
yeah, gotta go fast here. So, there's a couple of areas of the palate, and I'm not gonna take you through the whole quick, I'll just go quick. So, if you really want to dive in a little deeper, this is a little exercise I like to do. I like to put a little bit on my fingertip, touch it right to the tip of the tongue. Tip of the tongue. This area of the tongue is sweetness. So think about this, the more forward a bourbon gets, really is an indication of sweetness. Maker's Mark, they want that finish to go right there on the tip, sweetness. Second little area is right over to the side, and I mean the front third, if you will. This is the little salty area, right? So you got your tip of the tongue, and then right up in here, is saltiness. You pick up saltiness. This is, and not that you're going to taste salt, but it's an indication of saltiness. You do that same thing, and I won't get, but you go to the very back corner, and you touch a little bit, it's in the back corner. Sometimes if you feel like you get the flavor profiles, and it seems to be just sitting right here into your cheeks, that's really an indication of sour. This is where your sour receptors are on your tongue. And not that, again, you're not like picking up, and you might get hints of citrus in your bourbons or whatnot, but when the flavor profile's here, it's kind of an indication of sourness. And the last place is if you put a little on the bourbon on your finger and you just touch the very, very back of your tongue and not gag yourself, and you touch it there and kind of see what that is. When the flavor profile is just hanging way in the back, that's the sign of bitterness. Not that you're not getting bitter, but that is an indication of bitterness. So that kind of gives you just a quick overview of bourbon or whiskeys or whatever it is, where that flavor is residing. And it's important when you think about, when you're sipping it, it's like thinking about where do I enjoy my flavors. You like sweetness, you're going to enjoy anything that comes forward. If you're kind of sour, middle of the road, it's going to be back in here. So what do you think, Troy?
I think it's delicious.
Your taste is
Let's have another taste,
Yeah.
everybody. And as we bring our live feed to a close, I'd like to ask some questions on how you think this thing tastes.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We've got, because we're limited on time on the live feed right here, we're actually going to ask Ava to come up and give us a toast, a closing toast. Those of you that want to stick around, we're not stopping right now. And guys, thank y'all so much. You've done a great job here so far. And I will tell you, if nothing else, not only did we learn a lot here, but you guys accomplished a really great mission today. Okay, I don't know if you realize the importance of it, because you slowed this crowd down on their drinking too. By now, usually, Ava, Melissa, and I have gone through like 3 of these by now, just between the 2 of us. So, cheers. That's right. But this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Ava, if you would, could you? This has kind of become a tradition for us as well. And again, we're all kind of united around the purpose of sharing history, sharing our stories, and sharing our family. And so we have nobody better to make a final closing toast here than Miss Ava Thompson. So Ava, if you'd lead us in a toast, we would appreciate that.
7 Jars, thank y'all for coming down for this event. And Whiskey, Tango, Charlie. Charlie and Troy, thank you very much for teaching us the art of tasting Ava Gardner bourbon. I believe that Ava Gardner is more than a certain lady at a certain time in a certain place. Ava Gardner is a state of mind. Ava Gardner is an attitude that imparts class, elegance, and grace. And this whiskey, to me, does all of that. It is the perfect beverage to bear her name. And with that thought in mind, here is to the Ava state of mind. Happy birthday to our beloved Ava.
Cheers.
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 Now, if you are wondering where to get your whiskey, it was in the North Carolina State Warehouse this past Monday and is currently being shipped out to individual ABC stores around the state. If your ABC store does not have it in stock yet, ask for it. The individual ABC stores are obliged to bring it in as a special order for you. If you are out of North Carolina, you can go to a website called Cask Cartel, and you can order a bottle. And by the way, the ABC store here in Smithfield has a few bottles of the first edition left, and many bottles of the new second edition. So you may want to stop by and pick up your second edition. One to drink, one to save. And I think that closes us. Thank you to all of Ava's friends worldwide for joining us for this broadcast today, and Keep up the good work on the social media pages. Bye.
Bye-bye now.